This is a tutorial for how to create the Christmas star using the 3D software TinkerCAD. First, make sure that you are logged into your TinkerCAD account using your Chinook email address. After that, you can create a new design. Now that we're brought to the work plane, we can change the name of our design so that it saves automatically for us. We can change the name to our first name, underscore, whatever we are designing, which is the Christmas ornament. That way when we go to print this, we know exactly whose ornament we're printing at what time and nothing gets mixed up. So we're going to first of all drag a star to the work plane. And after I've got my star on my work plane, I'm now going to resize this star. Currently it is 36.18 millimeters wide. I'm going to change that number to 60 millimeters. Make the star a little bit bigger. Click on the top square box as well. Resize that one to 60 millimeters as well. Now we need to create the cutout for our star. So I'm going to drag a second star onto the work plane. And I'm going to resize this star as well. And I'm going to make it 20 millimeters shorter, so I'm going to make it 40 millimeters wide and 40 millimeters tall. Here we go. Drag that star over top of our first star. Now, it's not a hole yet, so I have to turn it into a hole. Now it's told TinkerCAD that this is a hole. I'm going to select both of those objects, click and drag over top of both of them. And it's not perfectly centered yet, so I'm going to align these two stars. Click on the alignment button right there. And if we click this middle circle, it's going to align it up and down. And if we click this middle circle here, it's going to align it left and right. So click both of those circles. We are now aligned. Click on the work plane. You are still have those two objects selected. We can now group those. And that's going to turn our hole into an actual cutout. So there we go. We have our cutout for our star. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a little circle at the top here so we can tie a piece of string or something to that so that we can hang it from the Christmas tree. So I'm going to take either a tube or a torus. This one's got square edges. This one's got round edges. Bring it onto the work plane. And now this is far too big in my opinion, so what we're going to do is we're going to make this a little bit smaller. I'm going to change it from 20 millimeters to 10 millimeters. And same thing with the other direction, 20 milliliters to 10 millimeters. And I'm going to try and center this as best possible I can on that point of that star. Now if I rotate this view, I see that my star is way too thick. This only needs to be about 2 millimeters thick, so what we're going to do is we're going to change the thickness of this star. I'm going to click on my star, and these are all the corners and the sides of the star. This one here in the middle, okay, if I click on the top one here, that's actually going to move it up and down. Now, I don't want to move it up and down, so I'm going to Control Z that just in case I shifted something. My panic button, Control Z. I'm actually going to click that white square box that's directly underneath that kind of triangle looking object there. So I click on that star or that square that's underneath, and that is the depth or the thickness of my star. Currently set to 10 millimeters. I'm going to set it to 2 millimeters. Nice thin star. It's going to be for a quick, easy print. Same thing for our torus. I click on the torus, and I click the white square that's beneath that triangle, and I change from 5 millimeters to 2 millimeters. Now they're the same thickness. And now that we've got that done, I can actually take this and group these objects. So I'm going to actually click the group icon, and that's going to turn them into the same object. So they are now stuck together. At this point, we're going to take and put a banner across the middle of our star, which is going to allow us to put our name on it. So I'm going to use a box. I bring it into my work pane. And I'm going to change the size of this box to approximately 5 millimeters tall. And the length, we need it so that it's going to reach from one side of the star to the other. So I'm going to put it at about maybe 35 millimeters and see how that works out. So we'll mess with our star for a little bit here and see if we can get this to work. Might be a little bit long, so we're going to change that to 30 millimeters wide instead. Now you can keep this however you want. You can make this look however you want inside of your star. You can keep it just like that, be nice and easy if you want, but there is an angle button that we can use on this as well. So what I'm looking for is if I click on my work plane and I click back on my box, I can now click this angle button right here. It works in 22.5 degree increments, which is pretty big. So if you see, it's not really going to be centered on my star. So I'm going to keep it back at, oh, there we go. Now we can go by smaller increments. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set this to approximately 17 degrees. It went the wrong way. Okay, so I'm going to hit my panic button, Control Z, and that brings me back to square one again. And instead of 17 degrees, I actually wanted negative 17 degrees. It's going to rotate that negative 17 degrees. Now that looks a little bit better. Now to get a really good look at this, I'm going to rotate my view a little bit. See if the box needs to be a little bit longer. And right now, it looks like it's not quite attached there. And it's not quite attached on the other side. So I'm going to make this box just a little bit longer in the end. So I'm going to once again bring me back to 0 degrees by Control Z. There it is, that's back to 0 degrees. I'm going to make this a little bit longer again. Make it 35 millimeters once more. And now I'm going to rotate this 17 degrees. And again, it has to be a negative 17 degrees. Oh, now it goes the other way. So I Control Z. And I'm going to rotate this 17 degrees positive this time. And it rotates in 17 degrees positive direction, in the right direction I'm looking for. And I can take a look. Is this right? Yes, that's correct. That's touching now. That one's not quite touching. So again, I'm going to bring this down just a little bit. And I can see that now we're touching on that corner. We're touching on the other corner. It looks pretty good. So this is way too thick. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change the thickness of this from 20 millimeters to the same thickness as my star, which is 2 millimeters. And now I can actually group these guys together as well. So you want to play with your box there a little bit until you can see I've got a little bit of a blemish right there. So I can go back into this by ungrouping and clicking on that box once more, and I can make this just a hair longer, I think. Let's change this to maybe about a 36 millimeters. And I just want to get it inside that star so that we can't see the distinguish between the star and the box itself. So click and drag over top of everything, group everything together once more. Now it looks like we've got a pretty decent looking star there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring some text in. And I'm going to now type in my text, whatever the name that I would like to have or the writing that I'd like to have on this. We're just going to put for this purpose Mr. G. Any spaces in here, so if you want spaces, you're going to have to do 2 types of text. And we're going to drag this over top, and we're going to make this a little bit thinner. We'll make it about 5 millimeters, and we will make it approximately, you can play with it too, just moving it around. It's going to have to be a little bit thinner than that even, so I'm going to go probably 3 millimeters and see how that looks. So you can see that M is actually going to be probably the okay size now. Squeeze it together a little bit more. And of course you can rotate this. You rotated the box 17 degrees, so we're going to rotate the lettering 17 degrees as well. It went the wrong way. Control Z, hit my panic button. I'm going to go negative 17 degrees. And now it's the same as the box. So I click on my text once more, drag it in the middle of my banner. You can make your banner a little bit thicker if you want, so the letters show up a little bit bigger. But basically at this point I want to make these a cutout, so I'm going to turn the letters into a hole. And then of course do the exact same thing that I did with the star earlier on. I'm going to click, drag, and group them together to turn the hole now into a cutout. So now I can actually see through that. So play with this, make sure that you are happy with it, and that is the end of the Christmas star.